Hello, dear co-creative destiny viewers. Here is Airy Fairy Flowery. Airy, short name for Erica. Fairy because I love to read fairy tales or wise stories. And flowery because of the flowers. And that's why I also use Friday. It's the day for blooming, like the theme of blooming on this favorite day of the week stands for the goddess Freya and for freedom. Yeah, so let's bloom today with another wise story from this book, translated How Many Colors Has Got Your Longing? And it's about such, maybe the most important question, the purpose of our lives. Written by Roland Kübler. This beautiful picture. So I will just translate it from German intuitively into English. So there are many paths in life which we can follow. And sometimes one life is not enough to fulfill our purpose. On this story, there's a young man who leaves his parents and his father being very disappointed about him because he imagined his son to take over his shop, and his mom being very worried and very scared about anything new, thinking that they already have got everything. So why should her son would want to leave to discover the purpose of life somewhere else? But this young man, he knew intuitively that he wanted to discover the world and that his particular sense of purpose was lying outside the village. So even though both of the parents have been disappointed and his father even angry, he still decided to go. So he collected some of his most important stuff and said goodbye to find the purpose of life. And so he started his pilgrimage. He was walking for many, many days until he arrived at a little house where an old woman lived. And she asked him, "Would you like to stay with me? And I will tell you the secret of the purpose of life. If you stay here and help me with the household and help me preparing food, doing the potatoes, peeling the potatoes, and yeah, I will tell you the purpose of life." So he stayed with her and he learned how to make milk and cheese, how to bake bread, and how to cook. But he was still wondering. After 1 year staying with her, he was asking, "You wanted to tell me the purpose of life, so what is it?" And the woman showed him outside of the window and said, "Look at this step. Step is like desert-like scenery, like the taiga in Russian. Where my family, for example, lives in Kazakhstan, there's lots like of steppes, hardly nothing there. It's a bit like a desert." And she's shown him like, "Just look, this like endless scenery. That is the purpose of life. This freedom and endless scenery." But the young man was thinking about it and said, like, no, that's not the purpose of my life. And he decided to continue on his path. And the old woman gave him a folk on his path. The folk standing also for this freedom, and it's like unbound possibilities. So he took the folk and some staff and continued on his journey. And as he continued on his journey, after a couple of days, he stopped in another house, in another hut. And this time, this hut was more in the mountains and in the hills. And an old man greeted him and was saying to him, just stay with me in those hills and those mountains, and I will tell you what is the purpose of life. And so the young man said, okay, I will stay with you. And the man, he learned how to look after some goats and some sheep. And he knew how to make butter. And he was cutting wood for the old man and listening to the stories of this old man. And he even stayed 3 whole years with this man, and still he didn't discover the purpose of his life. And then one day he was saying, now I'm with you for 3 years and you still didn't tell me the purpose of life. And the old man answered, in all this time you're with me now, you still didn't understand what the purpose of life is? Just look outside of those mountains. Everything has got a place here. Everything is fixed and grounded. You know what to expect here. And looking at that, you don't understand the purpose of life. It's about being grounded. And the young man said, but I stayed with an old woman. She told me that is this freedom and unboundless horizon. This is the purpose of life. And now you're telling me it's about like being grounded and staying in one place all the time. What's the purpose of life? No, this is not for me. So he packed his things and he continued on his journey. And after a few days, he arrived in the woods, in the deep woods, where he met a young woman. And the young woman greeted him and said, I can tell you are looking for the purpose of life. So stay with me and I will teach you what the purpose of life is. And since this young man liked the young woman very much, he stayed there for 5 whole years and helping her with everything in the household, and also getting some food from the woods, and by like killing the animals and shooting the animals. But after 5 years, it was the woman who said, even though I'm very happy with you, this is not the purpose of your life, why you came here. This is my life here, but it's not yours. You are still searching. So I'm giving you this little bag with some seeds for you to take with you. And whenever you find your purpose of life, you can plant those seeds as a sign that you've found it, and so that your purpose of life can sprout and flourish. Even though he didn't feel like leaving, he picked up his seeds and he realized that there was some truth in it. So he took those seeds from her and continued further on his journey. And the next stop was at the ocean, and he stayed with a fisherman, learning everything about how to be a fisherman. And he loved it very, very much, that he even stayed there for 7 years, every day going to fish and admiring the beauty of the ocean. And still after 7 years, he discovered that he still didn't find the purpose of life. And when he asked the old fisherman, he was saying, "Can you not see? Can you not see? It's this beauty of the ocean. It offers us everything what we need for." And the ocean is very powerful and it's always moving. And each wave is different. Sometimes it's wild and sometimes it's really soft. This is the purpose of life. But the man realized, no, he was still not satisfied. And he decided to continue to search for his purpose of life. And as a present, the old fisherman gave him a mussel that when he puts it on his ear, he can always hear the sound of the ocean. So with the folk showing him the path, and what did the man from the mountain give him? I forgot. The man from the mountain gave him a stone for being grounded, with a stone in his pocket, and with the seeds from the woman, and now with the mussel. All these presents he continued. And he was walking for many, 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 many months until he arrived at a little hut, which was like in the middle of nowhere. The very, very old man, looking like he was waiting for this man. And he greeted him, "You are here where all paths finish. Everybody is going to come here at some point of their lives. So come on in and you will be shown the purpose of life." And the man who was not so young anymore after all those years as being a wanderer asked the question, "After so many years I've been wandering around and searching. I still don't know what is the purpose of my life. Can you tell me?" And the old man said, "This question has got you, and not you the question. That's why you have been wandering around for such a long time. You were in the steppe, in the desert, and in the mountains. You have lived in the woods and at the ocean. All those years you were always thinking about the purpose of life. And you still don't know it, do you? And your path and your questioning might end here, or it might not. And impatiently, the man was asking, but I would like to know the purpose of life. Please tell me. And the old man, he stretched out the arm, and the folk sat down on his arm. And he asked, please give me the stone and the mussel. The folk was there. Please give me the stone, the mussel, and the seeds which you have been given on your journeys. And looking at all those things, the old man was saying, look at this. The purpose of life are all those things, and at the same time, none of it. Because the purpose of life is life, to be alive in the life you're in. And then the wise elder stood up, put the seeds in his pocket and the stone in the other one, and the mussels, and the folk remained on his arm, and he left the hut. And the man was sitting there, somewhere in the middle of nowhere, and he was sitting there for a few days, observing how the sun was rising and going down, looking at the stars and the moon. And he listened to the slow heartbeats and his breath going in and out. And then after a few days, he just stood up. And he realized he no longer had to question himself. What is the purpose of life? And he realized he no longer had to ask that anymore, but just continue on his path, listening to his heart. And only the path of his heart. And being alive is the purpose of life. So I understand it, that it's about being alive in the life which we have, and just taking soul-aligned, heart-aligned steps. And it's the journey, being on the journey, and most alive and aligned matter. This is the purpose of why we are alive. Being conscious about the breath and what is breathing us, and rest with that, and not just questioning from the mind. So I hope you enjoyed this story as much as I did about this most important question which we carry within ourselves. Not living from the mind, but from the heart, and you will find all the answers inside. Thank you for listening. Blagadaru, many blessings.